pleasure to be able to lead these conversations. This is the fourth of 5 mayoral candidate interviews, and we're pleased to have Greg Jamison with us today. We may have some new people here at the Village Co-op, so let me explain the format. I'll start off with Greg and I'll have just a one-on-one conversation, and then at about the 50-minute mark, I will invite all of you, if you have questions, to write them on the index cards, pass them forward, and then Greg will bring them up. Greg LaFollette will bring them up to me, and we'll try to get through as many of those questions as possible. I would hold off on writing those questions until you see how our conversation goes. We may cover a topic that you're curious about, and that may be, the answer may be sufficient for you. But I'll give you enough warning so you can jot down your questions. I'd like to begin by asking Greg to give a personal self-introduction, covering your upbringing, your family, your education, and your career. Greg, before we get into the important issues of this campaign. Greg?
Sure. Well, thank you. Does this sound okay? Everybody hear me okay? So this is an interesting question. We generally have a political statement that we give right away. And so this is a little different. So it's kind of fun, I would tell you. So I haven't done this. So I'm just going to tell you this as it comes. I was born in Sioux Falls here, one of 9 kids. I grew up number 8. I wasn't the baby of the family, but close. And we grew up at 26th and Duluth. You guys know where that is, kind of by the Freedom gas station that's there off Minnesota Avenue. We were those free range kids, the guys that could ride their bike all day and come back someday. I think there would have been a couple of days where I wouldn't have come home and my parents wouldn't have known with all the kids that were running through the house. But went to Christ the King School. I walked uphill both ways back in the old days. Went to a Gorman high school, married right after high school. So this was like prearranged marriage, almost like times. Crazy, but still. Just graduated high school, and my girlfriend at the time, was a year behind me in school. And after she graduated, we got married. And we've been married now 41 years, she says. Who's keeping track?
That's an important correction to make, Greg.
We have 2 kids, Dan and Jessica, and then we have 5 grandkids, all under the age of 7. But after high school, went to college at USD and tried to graduate with to become a lawyer. I took the LSAT test, and they said, go home and study some more if you really want to come back. But mass communication and criminal justice were my degrees that I worked on. I'm still a little short to get my degree. I ran out of money, frankly, and we had 2 kids, and life had to keep going. And so I kept going and started a business at the age of 29. We started Jamison Advertising. And from there, we worked on a lot of political campaigns. Most notably, you might know this guy, John Thune. His very first campaign when he ran for Congress, we did his whole marketing campaign and got to know John very well. And then we started to work for all kinds of other Republican candidates all over the state. And so we would do their TV ads, their brochures, their palm cards, all of that. And then it became, we worked with Gary Hansen, who was the mayor, Dave Munson. We did all their TV ads and marketing for them. And my dad. So my dad was in the city commission, old form of government back then. He was the public works director, if you will. And so it's really my interaction with him that really turned me into working as a politician.
Hold that thought. Keep going on your career, Greg.
Okay. So, as the career goes and starting that business, in the marketing world, and then now we have our real estate firm. My wife, Beth, handles the residential, and I do commercial real estate. So, then there's, a couple other pieces I don't want to forget.
I'll bet I will cover them.
Okay, so I'm just trying to be good. Being a grandparent, though, I'll tell you, just as a personal note, was the biggest blessing I ever had.
How many grandchildren?
5.
Are they all in town?
No, 2 are in town and 3 are in Des Moines.
Wonderful.
But it was something I never saw coming in my life, and it was really just a wonderful thing. You know, your own kids, you got to worry about and care for, and those grandkids really were just such a blessing. I didn't see it coming, frankly. I didn't see it coming.
Greg, I've been in this community over 33 years, and when I arrived in town, it was a commissioned form of government. Your father was your late father, Robert Bob Jamison, was one of those commissioners, and then he stayed on with the city council form of government. Ran for mayor twice, unsuccessfully, as I recall. In those over 3 decades, the Jamison name is synonymous with public service. In a very good way. And you have followed your father's example by getting deeply involved with public service as well. You served a total of 14 years as in elected office, between your own service on the Sioux Falls City Council and then your current role as a state representative, member of the House of Representatives here in South Dakota for District 12. You have run for mayor twice before. You initially ran against Mike Huther. That was back in 2014, as I recall. And then you ran 4 years later, failed to make the runoff. That was the first time was that the first time Paul Tenhaken was elected?
Yeah.
As I recall. So my question is, what compels you to stay so involved in public service, and why the mayor's office? And what's going to make the difference for you as a candidate this time out, since this is your third try for the mayor's office?
Third time's charm, right? You know, it really is a resilience, I suppose, and a commitment to serving and just working at it. Sioux Falls is worth fighting for. I would tell you, I learned a lot about myself when I lost against Mike Huther. I was on the city council at the time, you know, and when you're in the council and you're running against the current mayor, it creates some logistical challenges. And the incumbent has never lost. And so the idea of running against that is somewhat challenging in itself. Why would you do that? You know, you can't win, right? Well, the principles mattered. As a guy who was on the city council, watching him serve and things that he was doing that I felt were wrong myself, I could either keep whining about it or shut up and run. And I decided to run. And after I lost, I still had 2 more years, pleasant 2 years to serve with him as mayor and try to get things done. And we figured that out. You know, I didn't win. You were the winner, so to speak. You move on. And the second time with Paul,
it was a large field, as I recall.
It was a large field, but what I did after losing with Mike and finishing the city councils, I ran for the state legislature because it was still just another, well, how can I keep serving? I've got I felt way too much knowledge and energy about what could be done better. And so that was the first time I ran for the legislature. And then there was an open seat, and I thought, well, who's better to do that than me, right? Well, it turns out apparently somebody else. I don't know his name. Paul. What's his name?
Paul Tenhaken.
That's his name.
Who's now finishing up his second term. But why are you still running for mayor? I mean, I think about the Jamison name. You know, your father tried twice. This is now your third. So we've had a Jamison run for mayor 5 times.
Yeah. I wouldn't take it as personal vendetta against me or Jamison in any way. I would hope people see it as just a commitment to the city. My dad, I learned a ton from him. And I've learned a ton from all of my losses, frankly. And after, you know, losing in that mayor's race with Paul, what'd you say, Tenhaken? I went on to run for the legislature. And it's through and I'm currently a legislator. And I serve as a majority whip for the Republican Party. And I've been involved in all the leadership decisions within our state. And all these important task force with the prison and property taxes and other things related to the most important issues facing our state. There's an energy about that. It's like I'm amped up and ready to go. So here's the idea. If I didn't run and I'd sat and watched this unfold from the sideline and didn't participate, I would really feel like I gave up on the city.
So
and it's really hard, I can tell you, it's really hard to lose a race, let alone twice. It really is. When you wake up in the morning, you're like, why do people hate me? What did I do? You know, it really is personal, but there's a time where you heal and you go, okay, well, wait, it's not about me. It's a bigger deal. It's worth fighting for. My family lives here. I could fill this room up with relatives who live in Sioux Falls. So that matters to me, like it did to my dad.
Greg, give us a job description for the mayor's role. Key roles, responsibilities. What is the mayor's job?
Yeah, I've been trying to find it. I've been trying. So, of course, we have the strong mayor form of government, and that entails a CEO kind of approach to managing the city. But there's also the relationship with the city council that is a legislative body, and then the mayor serving as the administrative body. The mayor also oversees all the directors of the city. So there's a CEO version of it. But the unique parts about it is that, there are 2,000 employees or so, give or take. And I would tell you that no mayor who has served has ever managed that kind of a number of employees. So the new mayor, whoever that is, comes in, they're going to walk into a situation that is unique to them, very unique. And my style and approach would be making sure everybody knows that I'm just the leader, frankly, the guy who paints the picture and the vision. The real work is getting done by the employees. And so the leadership needs to be just a clear vision that is outlined.
So, Greg, regardless of who is elected, what are the essential personal qualities and qualifications of any successful mayor? What are the essential qualities and qualifications for a successful mayor?
Somebody who can listen, I think, is probably your first and number one issue, one quality. Somebody who can collaborate. You don't want to ever be the smartest guy in the room who says, I've got this. You guys just sit and be quiet. Color. You just color, and I got this kind of thing. And one of the interesting things, I think, as well, is inquisitive. One of the interesting pieces for me is working in the city government is solving problems, figuring things out. Well, what can we do to make that work? Homelessness, housing, traffic, for goodness sakes, all those kinds of things. So they got to be a little interested in the whole process and solving problems like that. So a fixer, a mechanic, if you will, I suppose. But a good listener, I think, is by far the biggest part.
Let's talk about character and integrity. Are there certain guiding principles that you follow? How do you make sure you're fixed on true north with your moral compass? What are your core values? Half a dozen, 10 core values that are absolutes for you.
Trust, respect, accountability, transparency, honesty. How many am I at?
Trust, respect, transparency, honesty. Did I miss one?
Accountability. Humility.
Where do those come from? Where do those guiding principles come from, Greg?
I gotta say it really comes from my dad, from the government side. Now I got to work with all these politicians across the state for many years, frankly. And I saw guys who would memorize a script, and that's about as good as they could do. And we would film that. I mean, that's what we were hired to do. But following through with the process was really watching my dad. I mean,
Was he the primary influence on you in terms of your public life?
Oh, yeah. So here's the connection. If you don't know, like I mentioned, one of 9 kids, there were 7 boys. So 6 of the boys went through the military in some capacity. And my dad was a retired lieutenant colonel. So they always had this connection. They could talk about other armed forces, because he was in the Air Force, and Army guys and Marine guys. I don't know if there's any in here, but they had that connection. I didn't have that with my dad because I couldn't serve. I've got a hearing disability where I'm deaf in one ear. I couldn't pass the physical. And so when he got involved in politics, and I was doing politics as well behind the camera, that was our connection. And that's where we became better connected like he had with my other brothers. So it was our chance to bond in a way that was different. I mean, so watching him at the council or at the commission meetings back then and then the council meetings, talking to reporters at the time, all those places. I remember standing in the Lewis and Clark water pipeline, that line, with my dad back then. And just knowing then, him telling me how important that infrastructure is to our city, that water supply, all of that. So, yeah, Dad.
So, Greg, have there been times in your life when your principles have been tested, when your integrity was really tested? And if so, how did you handle that?
Well, I would tell you the latest, best one, frankly, is you guys heard about this new prison that's coming to town?
Oh, we've heard about it.
Have you? Well, it'd be, I don't know if this is, you say this is live and everything. So I work as a commercial real estate, right? And I was also on the Prison Reset Task Force. I'm also on the Correction Rehabilitation Task Force. I was on the initial Incarceration and Review Task Force, the Funding Task Force, all things related to the prison. And during this last cycle of the Prison Task Force Reset, we went and visited communities where we were going to put the prison. And we were met with pitchforks and knives by the crowd. I mean, it was very... Figuratively, but either way, from my perspective, I said, okay, what do you put on your real estate hat? Where are you going to find a location to put a prison? Nobody wants one. Nobody wants to drive by it. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody wants it in their backyard. So where could it go? Well, I went out and found some land out by the landfill because Lincoln, Nebraska built their new prison by the landfill. Well, that makes sense. Who wants to live by a landfill? Let's go do it there. Well, I found some land that didn't work. The sellers, the owners of the land didn't want to sell. So I kept looking, and I found the land that the current prison is going to right now. I found the owners, and as a commercial real estate agent, representing a buyer or a seller, you can get paid 3 to 6%. And you know what 3% of $17 million is? I just happened to do the math. It's what I would have gotten paid. It's $500,000. So I had the chance to illustrate a sell like that, represent the sellers to the state.
But you had to recuse yourself.
I had to withhold that, and so that was a test for me. I mean, in essence, some might say it would have been better if I resigned as a legislator and made $500,000. That's not what I wanted to do. That location matters 95% to the entire conversation we had about this prison and its construction and its location. It mattered that much. And I got paid nothing. They just did a groundbreaking the other day. You might have been there. I was there. You know whose name they never said? Mine. You know who stood on the podium and thanked everybody? Well, you had the mayor, the governor, lieutenant governor, the contractors, and I was in the back row. But either way, it's a test of saying, wait a minute. I should have gotten paid, or you should name this after me. We already have Jamison. You guys know about the Jamison annex up there at the prison. It's not related to me.
Let's talk about leadership. Describe to us your leadership philosophy, style, and how that is going to show up in practice as mayor.
I would call it just
I mean, you've touched on, some of
Yeah.
these principles that maybe are relevant to that, but go ahead.
The pragmatic side of it is, I would think, just common sense approach, leadership. First off, making sure I and everybody understands. The mayor paints the picture, if you will, makes the vision kind of known, but understanding that it's the employees who make it happen. The mayor is just the mayor and the leader. I get that part. But I'm going to be pretty humble about my success and my abilities. I'm not a king. The mayor is not the king. He might be a selfie king, but that's not going to be me. But the idea is that just being pragmatic about it, and that there are successes that happen in our city that aren't all the credit of the mayor. It's one of the lessons I learned serving under and with Mike Huther, Dave Munson, and then now kind of away from Paul Tinhaken. There's a lot to learn about what they've done and what they should have done differently. And so all that hindsight kind of adds up. But really, it's all just a common sense approach and supporting the individuals who are really doing all the work and not trying to take all the credit for it.
Talk to us about your proudest accomplishments as a leader in your public life, your time on the city council, your time in the state legislature. What best demonstrates your effectiveness as a leader, Greg?
Well, I'd go back to two things, maybe one first on the city council when we were doing the event center. Here's a good example of the event center when we were trying to decide how much to spend, how big, and all of that, where it should go. My participation at the time was to create neighborhood or public meetings where we'd have all the aspects of the event center put up and allow the public to come in and ask any question they could about how wide are the seats, how far apart are they, how many seats should we do, why that kind of style, and whatever it was. And it allowed the public to understand the process. So I was in charge. I was the one who said, let's make these public meetings. Imagine if we had done something like that with the data centers, the big discussions we've been having. If we had that same kind of an open house environment where people could really come in and ask all those hard questions. So I'm proud of that piece. In the legislature, there's just probably the best is the recent bill that I passed and got through the body, House Bill 1245. It's called the CAPS bill, Community Area Projects. It allows municipalities to raise and save money before they build a project. And the idea there is you don't have to go borrow the money to do it and pay for all that interest and borrowing expenses. You raise the money up front and then
through a sales tax.
Through a sales tax. And getting that through the body, an ultra-conservative legislative body like we have today, I think was monumental. And then to have the governor sign it. Currently, the governor's under a bunch of attacks for signing that bill, which is kind of interesting. But still, there were 60 municipalities throughout the state who were all supportive of this. The city of Sioux Falls would have saved $50-some million on the event center if we had used my bill. So getting a bill like that through the legislative process and signed was an enormous economic tool for all municipalities throughout the entire state. I think that will be one of those bills, one of those initiatives that will be remembered for decades to come. So I'm really proud of that.
Can you point to an example of a time, maybe on the council or in the state legislature, when you made a decision, you were under enormous pressure, maybe there was a great deal of opposition, but you prevailed and got something enacted or came to fruition, and how are the lessons from that experience going to be? How will you apply them in your approach as mayor?
Well, there was a.
I know there was. You were deeply involved with the siting of what's now, the Denny Sanford Premier Center, and I think you were. Maybe that's an example.
What I was going to mention was really. I remember a zoning land use issue as a city council member, and a well-known developer in our community whose name, if I said, you would all know, had asked for provision to allow bigger density on this piece of land, which would make it more valuable and, things. But in my opinion, it didn't fit the buffering of the adjoining properties. And I said, no, that's not a good idea. The buffering doesn't work. And I rallied the other councilors to support that position. Well, now I'm in opposition to this well-known developer. And then I became targeted as the guy who doesn't support development in our community. It was very hard to get past that, but I stayed true to it because it was right and it fit, and we won.
Did you ever reconcile with that developer?
No. No. So it's unfortunate because it's not the truth. The reality is the land use issues that the city council deals with day in and day out are very important and complicated, and they have to be just right here. And it can't be, well, this guy is a friend. He gave me money during my election. He lets me put signs up. He invites me to go hunting. You know, and now you got to say no. It's a hard place. And I drew the line, and I would say I've paid.
You mentioned that your father was a real example to you, a role model. Can you think of a contemporary individual in public service, locally, maybe in the state, maybe even nationally, a contemporary figure who you think conducts himself or herself in a way that you would emulate?
Sure.
Who's a contemporary role model for you in public service?
I would have to tell you Paul Tenhaken. So when I ran against him the first time, there's still a little bit of hate right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right in here. There's just a little bit of hate for winning. But they asked us a weird...
Is it really hate, though?
No, I'm just teasing. Yeah. You know that. I should be more serious, but I like to have fun, and I'm generally that kind of a guy. But one of the questions somebody asked us in one of the forums was, if you couldn't vote for, obviously you can't vote for yourself, who else up here would you vote for? And some of the guys wouldn't answer the question. And I said Paul, because he reminds me of a younger me. I was that good looking once. I had more hair. This was...
You're talking about 8 years ago.
Yeah. Well, he's got a lot more gray hair now, too.
But it was 8 years ago. A big
Right.
field. And at that time, you were asked,
Yeah.
who would you want to oppose in the runoff, correct?
No, who would I vote for?
Or who you vote for? Yeah.
And I said Paul.
Yeah.
And he
I
said...
probably was the one who asked you that question, since I did a number of forums that year.
Probably. So, and then they asked him, of course, and he said me. And I just took that as a nice compliment. And I've always kind of teased him when I see him about, he's a younger version of me. And we've been talking prior to this election, and even while this campaign's going on. He was the first person I met with when I decided I'm running. And I said, okay, so what do you got here in the magic juice? What are you doing? How are you doing it? Things are going pretty good as far as I see, and am convinced. And so I'm trying to use him as a mentor, if you will, certainly leaning on him where I can, where he's comfortable with it, you know, but there's a lot to learn from him. And, Dave Munson I still visit with once in a while. We have coffee. Mike Uther and I don't chat much, but Gary Hansen I still chat with because he's out in the pier in the PUC.
Right.
And he was one of the other guys I met with. So, but I'd say contemporary, I guess, would be Paul.
Greg, City of Sioux Falls is big business. As you mentioned, over 2,000 employees, 2,094 to be exact, between part-time and full-time. Annual budget of $775 million. In each of the past 5 years, up $1 billion or more in building permits. So we have a robust and growing community. And by the end of your first term, we would be at 250,000 citizens here. Talk about your skills specific to the mayor's role, finance and budget, workforce management, maybe planning, crisis response, problem solving, governing a city that's now 220,000
Jack,
people.
how many parts to this question do you have?
Tell me,
trying to keep up.
tell me what you think are your skills specific to the mayor's role. How's that for simplifying the
There
question?
you go, boil it down. Well, somebody who listens, I guess, would be the first part. The mayor's got all the directors who are going to be telling him and advising him and all of that. You've got the relationship with the city council. So I think that collaborative nature as well, knowing that one of the biggest opportunities I would tell you, if I could detract it just a second, having served 8 years as a city councilor, and then now currently 8 years as a state legislator, that relationship you have with the administrative branch is paramount. Holy smokes! Some of the challenges Paul Tinhaken has had is the relationship with the legislative body.
I want to get in. We're going to go deeper on that in
All right.
just a moment.
So I'm off track too far, but the point is,
Well, I mean, have you managed a large workforce? Have you?
Yeah.
Do you understand basic accounting? Have you dealt with crisis situations? Those are some examples.
yeah. So I would just revert back to 30 years as a business owner, and that piece, crisis management, is all day, every day. It seems like, probably. Just serving as when I was on the city council, remember back when we had that sewer main break?
Sure
in the
do.
city? That was a big deal. That was and we were trying to figure out how could we communicate with all the people on the west side of town to stop using water.
Stop flushing toilets.
Yeah. Because it amounts to toilets too, but the whole amount of water, shower, any water usage within your home that's coming through the sewer system was going to put all that pressure back, and we were going to have a disaster. And so I remember I was the chair of the city council at the time, and Mike Uther called me over, and we went to the city hall, and we were trying to figure it out. So the crisis management was informing the public, understanding what's at stake here, and what's going to happen if the sewer goes into the river, and all the penalties involved. So I guess seeing some of that and experiencing all of the things and challenges we've had over the last few years in our state and our city with COVID and just disasters, I think just to being a business owner, I think propels me to understand the mechanics of the budget. Certainly as a city council and legislator putting together the budgets for the state and the city council, that's very good experience, frankly. That's for the opportunity for somebody who has served as a city councilor to be the mayor. That's one of the struggles we've never overcome. And so there's a communication gap that occurs, and it's Paul's struggle because you become, as mayor, I think you become maybe a little disconnected, and you assume that the city council is going to do exactly what you think and say. And the reality is, as a city councilor, we think a lot differently. And so getting that all together to gel is a little magic. And so I guess having some of those experiences of disagreements that we've had in the past, I think will create a smoother path going forward.
Earlier, you mentioned that part of the mayor's role is to have a vision for the city at a very high level. We'll drill down with some specifics.
How high? How high are we?
30,000.
All right.
30,000 foot. What is your vision for the city of Sioux Falls? What might this community look like in 2030, which would be the end of your first term, at a high level?
High level. I would hope for somebody to say when I'm running for re-election, if you will, or getting done with my term, that Sioux Falls has become the friendliest, easiest, nicest place to do business with. We've got a lot of good things going on, but there's certainly things that we need to fix. But I think if on a high level, people could say, that there's a lot of contentious in the city council meetings with public input. A lot of, several flyers, if you will, who come and talk all the time about what's wrong. But there's just a place I think we can get to where the public feels like, you know what, they do everything great, fast, friendly, easy, nicest place. That's the image I'd like to have.
Do you want it to be a city of similar size? Are you embracing growth?
Oh, yeah.
Are you resisting growth?
So that one developer that I talked about, he thinks I would resist growth. But no, the reality is, like I say, I've lived here my entire life. I was here when it was Mayberry, frankly, and
What was the population of Sioux Falls when you were born?
I don't remember.
What year were you born?
Why would you ask that?
It's a way to find out what your age is. What year were you born?
1964.
1964. So the population of Sioux Falls was about 65,000.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So you said it was Mayberry. Think about that. Think about from 65,000 to 220,000 in your lifetime so far.
Yeah, and now it's a regional powerhouse. I mean, we are the funding mechanism for the entire state. What happens here really matters to the entire state. And as a guy who's grown up here, I'm just about as proud as you could be that we're the one carrying the load for the entire state. It's a big deal. And so, I'm all for the growth as long as growth can pay for its way. What you don't want to do is allow growth. If you want to see what bad growth looks like, just go to 41st in Minnesota and go west on 41st. And you'll see driveway after driveway after driveway. That's what happened when development got ahead of planning. So now you can see clearly as you go out further to other parts of town, like here, you can see how the roadways are designed, and the land is zoned properly and allows traffic to flow and all those kinds of things. So I just want to make sure we stay ahead of that curve, but we need to embrace it. There's so many things that we're not even doing on our own. So all the health care that's provided in our community, people are coming here for that. The jobs that are created here, kids move here for those jobs. What we're doing as a city is only a part of it. We're just creating the structure for all of that other activity to exist. So I think it's important to keep it going.
Let's drill down a bit. If elected, you would take office with a great deal of political capital, but finite resources. Even though you will have you might have the option to raise sales tax so you can prepay for certain capital projects. What are your top 3 or 4 priorities in year number 1? Greg, where are you going to start? Year number 1, top 3 to 4 priorities.
First priority is public safety. Just yesterday, there was an officer shot. You might have heard about that, but I've made this clear from the beginning. Like I mentioned, I met with the mayor first, the police chief second, and the police union third. Public safety is my number 1 priority by far.
Okay, and I want to drill down that in a moment. What's your next?
Why am I always off track?
No, you're not. You're right on track. You're doing fine.
So public safety is number 1.
Public safety is number 1.
Second is fiscal responsibility.
Okay.
So my time in the legislature and in the city council, managing the budgets is paramount, with accountability and transparency. It's one of the key things missing right now. One of the things I'd like to add to this is recreating our website. So you can get on there and see a dashboard of essentially, where is your money going? How much did we spend on that? Where are we at? Just that level of transparency to the next level.
Okay. Public safety, fiscal responsibility, with transparency. Give me 1 or 2 more. In the first year number 1.
Managing the growth.
Manage growth.
With a balanced, common sense approach, meaning we let development pay for its way. We don't have to subsidize it as a city.
Okay. You want a 4th in that first year, or is that enough?
That's probably enough.
Okay. Let's drill down on each of those. Public safety. You've said throughout this campaign it's priority number 1. What specifically are you proposing to improve public safety in a growing community? What specific? Are you talking about a larger police department? Are you talking about other changes in law? What is your vision for how you're going to tackle public safety specifically?
Right. So a lot is said about a guy who creates a crime and that the ability for the police department to catch him. Because the guy who's likely creating felonies and just reckless out there is doing more than just one. So the police department's ability to collect them is paramount, or capture them or stop them. And so you talked about the police force numbers. Right now we teeter right at the minimum number. And then we have a few retire, and then we're short, and then we're hiring a new group. We need to go up another notch. So we're not playing this game of just getting to the minimum number of officers, because here's why it matters. All those officers who are working are struggling when they want time off, or they're sick. There's not enough backup.
So what's the current size of our police department? How many sworn officers typically?
There's 308.
300. All those are filled?
They say they are.
Okay. And you want to take the police force to what number? From 308 to what?
Probably 320, because what happens is you get a class of 10 or 12, and of that class, half of them drop out or fail and don't. So we've got to go up one more class, is my point, so that we stay ahead of that curve.
Fine. What else?
So one of the things I just met yesterday with the police chief. I was standing with him when he got the phone call that there was an officer who was shot. But we were taking a tour of the public safety training ground, and there's a couple enhancements there that they could use for better training of the officers. But one of the things we've talked about as well is, you know how we have neighborhood watches? Everybody's kind of been apart, or maybe you've seen them. Well, take that to another level where it's a citywide watch. And so individuals like some of you, perhaps even, who are retired and have the time but want to do something more in their community, there's places where you can help the police department. Currently, they've had to hire a lot of retired police officers just to come back to fill in positions. I think there's a mentorship or an opportunity for regular citizens to get involved in protecting our community.
Is it a neighborhood watch program where people are, walking around their neighborhoods, or tell us what this looks like?
It's a neighborhood. It's a citywide watch, and so individuals who, the police department is struggling. Not struggling. Don't use that word. But there's a lot of individuals who are racing cars around the city, racing motorcycles. Well, we have a no chase policy, because it's very dangerous for a police officer to chase somebody through the city. Well, what if you were around and you saw opportunity or saw these people racing? You can call in and say, hey, these guys just came by. Well, that's great, because we've been trying to figure out where they're at. Now they can move resources. And so things like that would be one example.
We have a new prison coming, so that means that we're going to have our main maximum security prison here in Sioux Falls for another century or so. How big an issue is recidivism and the release of parolees to our community, and how might you tackle that?
Yeah. So like I mentioned before, I'm on that task force, the Correctional Rehabilitation Task Force. And our goal and mission of that whole thing is to find a way to stop the revolving door. And think of it this way. I hope you think of it this way. The inmates who are in prison, they might have had a moment in their life where they made the decision of being a good guy to the worst that now needs to go to prison. Those are a few of the guys. But generally, most of those people are people who have fought upstream the entire way. Every chance a judge has given them to go on probation. Don't do it again, or I'll send you back to jail, or you'll go to prison. And what do? They seem to keep fighting uphill. All I want to get to is the point is, now that they're in the prison system, and now it's the state's job to fix them, that's an enormous task. It's been a long road to get there, so it's no easy fix. The reality is the individuals who are in prison need to have a change of heart. I mean, the majority of them are addicted to something, alcohol, drugs, and it wrecks them. And if they're not willing to make that change in their life, we are fighting up current. It is difficult, and it has been. And so one of the things that we're going to come out of with this Correctional Rehabilitation Task Force are treatment programs that happen within the walls of the prison. And just remember this too, those individuals who maybe go to prison for 10 years, some for 5, some for 2, the whole cycle of their life in prison is different. And so it isn't like everybody who comes in gets this pill or this fix and they come out better. Everybody's on a different line, in a different place. So it's very complicated. We've struggled with it forever. And I would tell you this, just to be truthful and fair, the Republican Party has focused completely about paying for that new prison. That was a Republican initiative to build the new prison because the old one is outdated and doesn't fit for training and rehabilitation. Well, we weren't all hooked up on the rehabilitation part of it. But now, after the new prison is passed, we have collectively, as Democrats and Republicans, decided that it's important to focus on rehabilitation.
And what's the mayor's role in getting that done?
Right, well, I put together the Safer Sioux Falls Forum, and I brought together all the players in the spectrum of this. And our goal was to figure out what can we do. And it is very challenging. And so the mayor's role is to hold that communication line with state legislators when it comes to funding those rehabilitation programs for the prison. Because like you mentioned, those, when they get out, they come right out of here in Sioux Falls. Mostly because that's where all the resources are, and a lot of times because the city that they came from, all their family hates them, and they don't want them back, or that person wrecked it, I should say. One way or another, they don't want to go back, they're not welcome to go back. So Sioux Falls gets them, the resources are here, the parole officers are challenged, they've got way too many to handle, and so the mayor's role really is to work with the legislators and keep them in tune with the challenges we're having, keep that group informed, the governor's office as well.
Let's put a bow on that on public safety, and let's move to fiscal responsibility, which you said is your second priority in the first year. Are we now being fiscally irresponsible? What needs to be fixed here, Greg?
I wouldn't call it irresponsible. I would just say there are opportunities to add transparency to it all and accountability. So if we say we're going to spend X number of dollars, you might not know how much money was spent on parks, for instance, as a category of our whole entire budget. And you might say, did we waste any money there? Did all those projects get funded properly? Where was the leftover money? And so that accountability piece and the transparency that I want to add is that portal.
Is that information being withheld from the public now?
No, it's just probably, I would say, buried potentially in like a 500-page PDF, you know? And so with some of the opportunities here is, for me, I just have this enormous respect for the public's money. It certainly isn't mine. And what I do with it should be as crystal clear, the good, bad, and the ugly. I'll tell you a quick story if I could. So
if it's relevant.
One of the pushes that I've got about this is I stood at a press conference with Mike Huther, and we were unveiling all of the street projects for the upcoming year. Exciting time, right? Well, in my opinion, and what I participated in was authorizing that mayor to spend the money on those projects. Well, his approach was, this is my gift to you. I now am giving you this gift of these new roads. And I saw that as a missed opportunity to explain truthfully what happens. The city council authorizes it, and he is required to spend it. And so just some simple pieces like that, so everybody knows who's involved.
But you think under Paul Tenakin's administration, the information is he has not been as transparent as he should be?
Just not as well as it could be. I'm not going to criticize him. In reality, I think we're all pretty good and blessed to have him have served. I just think there's always opportunities and ways to do it better. And the good, bad, and the ugly I talk about, there are times where we've goofed and made mistakes. And we should be honest about that and show them. Even though it's a black eye on us, I think the public deserves to just be completely transparent.
I'm going to ask one more question of Greg, and then we want to turn to your questions. So if you want to jot down your questions on cards, go ahead. But I'd like to ask you about your third priority, and that is managing growth. We're at a point now where once Smithfield vacates what we're calling this Sanford district, we have potentially 130 acres in downtown to develop. There's the Riverline District proposal for 9 acres plus the viaduct. We have other potential downtown projects. Maybe someday we'll even complete the central ramp downtown. Talk to us about what are you going to do as mayor to have the right to manage growth in the proper way?
Well, as I mentioned, that bill that I passed, 1245, called the CAPS bill. It won't actually go into law until July when it becomes effective. But a part of that provision is the creation of a capital improvement board. We used to have it back in the days, the old days, if you will. And what the way it works is that a group of individuals representing the entire city would come together and we'd review all of the capital projects within the city. And collectively, they would make out a ranking and an order of which ones we should do first. And it set up the capital improvement plan. Instead of the mayor and its directors deciding it, it was made up of a community effort. And so those other pieces of land that you talk about would be incorporated in that decision process. And so there would be ways for the entire, this capital improvement board to meet, recommend, and go through all those proposals. So the use of that board, I think, is going to become very, very productive.
You'd have to be the person that's going to land the plane for Smithfield to move to the business industrial park.
Yeah.
Any concerns there?
Yeah, there are some concerns. The lawsuit that recently is kind of surfaced probably illustrates a process that was done at the minimum state requirement guidelines. And what I've learned over the years is I've been a part of creating laws that required minimum requirements for municipalities across the state. What we goofed at was we stayed with the minimum. And I think where our opportunity was that in a situation like the Smithfield project, there's a group of homeowners who are going to be dramatically impacted. And they weren't a part of the process of having their land purchased. Now, I would tell you some of them probably don't even want to sell. They know that what they have isn't desirable and they probably couldn't get market rate. But what they do know is that they're being impacted by this new meat processing plant far different than a new Amazon building getting built. So what would you do? What could you do as the biggest city in the state? Probably you could have buffered them with a little bit of, hey, look, man, I know I'm going to be in your way. How about here's a little money? Because we know we've impacted the value of your home. Let's just be honest about it. We're bigger than that. We're better than that. We didn't have to just stand with the minimum. So I think we could have done it better. And there's probably challenges, but I don't know enough of the inside rules on the lawsuit and details, but I know we could have done it better.
You think we should proceed with the Riverline District?
So the Riverline District is interesting. So I serve as the chair of the Experience Sioux Falls Bid Board.
What does BID stand for?
Business Improvement District. So all the hoteliers in the city pay, you collect a fee for everybody who stays there. And then that money is spent on getting conventions to come to town or new events so that they can, use our city. So I'm on that task force, so we're studying the idea of building a downtown convention center and building it there or building it somewhere. The way that land was purchased and the way it's set aside is for public use within a certain window of time, or it goes back. And I'm certain that we can find a way to do something good for our community with that land. I'm not convinced it's the best place for a convention center. The best place for a downtown convention center is right off of Phillips Avenue on Main. Anybody got any building there that they want to sell? I mean, it's very difficult to do it exactly where we want to do it. That would create the biggest economic impact return on our investment right there. But it's nearly impossible. The Riverline District is a little removed because there's a river and an active rail line. And you got to walk over, July convention, and you got all these people want to walk over downtown. Difficult. The Smithfield site or the Sanford District creates a different challenge. There's a river there. There's other connection problems. It's even further away. But there's other great things that can happen at both of those places. It doesn't have to be a convention center.
Let's turn to the questions that were submitted by members of the audience here at the Village Cooperative. And this relates, I think, to the relationship between Sioux Falls and the rest of the state. It's the issue, this idea of collaboration, working with the state legislature, working with the governor, perhaps. And this specific question is, why did the legislature not fund the prison rehabilitation program? Mm-hmm. They funded the building of a new prison, but when a bill came forward to invest, a few $1 million in rehab programs behind the walls, it was rejected.
Right. So why did those guys vote against it? So there's $2.7 million for a treatment program, and the sponsor of the bill was kind of somehow related, maybe a little too close, seen as too close to the actual company that would receive the money. So it built some untrust there. The other piece probably is that this correctional rehabilitation task force that I'm on, part of our mission is to come up with those same programs and the funding. The reality of it is today, some of those programming couldn't exist in our current structure. There isn't room. There isn't a place for them to do it. So a lot of people were saying, well, we're not quite ready yet, so let's wait. I voted for it. It would have been smart because it's a statewide program. It wasn't just Sioux Falls. And in other parts of the state, there's room.
Question is, how will you decide who you're going to hire for department managers? I might expound on that a little bit. I think there are at least 3 directors who are retiring or wrapping up, including some pretty critical positions there. What are you going to be looking for in key members of really your cabinet, and how are you going to make those decisions and choices?
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned watching this process is a kind of a transition team for a new mayor who comes in. I mean, some experts in the industries around the city and trusted people that I have will help kind of bridge that gap of the new guy. Like I mentioned before, no mayor, Paul included, no mayor has ever walked away from a corporation or company that managed over 2,000 people and stepped into the mayor's role and now manages 2,000 people. Nobody. So there's a step there that's enormous and challenging but exciting. But still, I need some help figuring that out. But when you think about the positions, you've got planning, parks, and HR. And of all those 3, the planning piece is the most important. And I met with Jeff Eckhoff and his assistant, Logan. And I'm getting to know Logan. He seems pretty qualified. But it's these others too. So my process would be relying on that transition team. I'm aware of some people who want to work in those positions, and that's consideration. There's a first step. If all these steps is to get elected, right, and then you can think about who to hire. But that planning position is the most important because that growth is just pounding us day after day, and we've got to get ready for that. And I think we're pretty good.
You think we'll have difficulty attracting someone of Jeff Eckhoff's capabilities to replace him?
I don't think so. Sioux Falls has got a lot of good stuff going on. Could you imagine if we were a declining populated city, diminishing population, all of that, sales tax decreasing? Who would want that? Now, they were very smart. There were others who could have stayed and played a temporary role in these positions. And then a new person comes in and fires them because they want to bring in their own person. What they did is they held back and said, look, we don't want to wreck somebody's career by doing that. They purposely left these open for the new mayor to come in, find that person, bring him in, and get them going so that they could probably have some learning curve and all of that, and then get up to speed and really foster that person so they become better at that position and tenured and all of that, and just take some time.
The question is about affordable housing. Describe your vision for housing growth, including affordability, street and traffic flow, single family versus multifamily housing.
See, there's that multi-part question.
I didn't write that one.
Oh, you guys.
Don't shoot the messenger. I think it's a good question, though.
Okay, so in the northeast part of town, the city of Sioux Falls did one of the first things ever. They created a TIF to create affordable housing. If you think of the functions and roles of the city government, it does not include housing. We want to talk about parks, recreation, public safety, streets, maintenance and repair, clean water, sewer. It doesn't include housing. But the opportunity is for us to at least kind of feed it a little. And that TIF project that was created in the northeast part of town with Nielsen Construction is the first time ever that's been done. And so it's making homes that are that $250,000 to $350,000 price range for that first-time home buyer. And you needed a builder like Nielsen Construction who was willing to take a little less, because when all things considered, he could go out and build other homes and make all the money he could make. So that partnership was really critical, but it's the first time we've ever done it. And we're analyzing how that's working, and it appears to be working very well. The other piece on affordable housing is the piece that those nonprofits that are out there, they scratch and claw just to get a couple homes built here and there. And the city interfaces with them when they have zoning rules and regulations, or let's just say they're moving a house from a Sanford redevelopment area through the city, and every time they have to move the traffic lights, it's $3,000. Well, all that adds up, and these guys can't make it. So I think the city just needs to get out of the way on some of that, some of the red tape and zoning rules, just to be more favorable to those nonprofits. You talked about traffic. It's one of my favorite topics. Well, I should say favorite, but interesting. So of all the challenges we have out there, I don't know if you guys have a traffic light that knows your name. I mean, I've got a couple that own me.
And does it turn red or green for you?
Red. And so my hope is, I mean, I could tell you stories about my wife and I traveling, and it's a red light, and I say something maybe I shouldn't have said, and then pretty soon we're not talking in the car. You know, I know of a lot of stories that people tell me about a traffic light that interferes with their quality of life. So my hope is that there's currently a network system that's getting developed along Minnesota Avenue and 41st Street. So all those lights are connected by fiber optic line. But it's very difficult to program all of that. And as we get out to even other places, it's even more impossible to have that fiber optic line. But there's other technology that can make those street lights as smart as they come. I mean, we've got our smartphones, right? Imagine this, almost like having a police officer standing in the street and moving people. No more sitting at a red light when there's no cars coming. I'm done with that.
Do you think we are generally on the right track, though, with moving traffic, you know, with Veterans Parkway, with these diverging diamond intersections, roundabouts? You know, there's a lot of construction going on in town. I mean, are we on the right track, or do you think that we're really we got a lot of ground to make up?
No, we're on the right track with those arterial improvements, and those accesses is very important. It's really the traffic lights. It seems so basic, but it's amazing how it can impact the quality of life. So I would really like to address those traffic lights for all of us, including me. So.
Okay, if you are not elected mayor, how will you support the person who is? And if you are elected mayor, how will you work with the other candidates who lost?
Yeah. See, another two-part question, exactly.
You talk to
Nice. Well, first off, I suppose losing and working with the new administration, I would tell you I gave Paul Tinnick a lot of advice about things in relation to the state legislature. In this prison topic, I would just tell you, if you were to ask him, when we met and talked about the new prison coming to Sioux Falls, I'm the one that gave him and told him the line that we need to take one for the team. Sioux Falls has got to do it. There's no other way, based on the logistics of the current prison, the people who work here, all those resources that are allowed or used for the inmates, it's got to be here. You go 50 miles away, it isn't going to work. It's just got to be here. We've got to take one for the team. And we're finding one for the right place. So I've been involved with Paul in some of those. And then the comments that a mayor makes about legislators who maybe should be replaced or not supported. What that does as a legislator, it really creates a fence. All of a sudden, a fence is put up and I'm out in Pierre, and the mayor is saying these words. So I call him and I said, Paul, you're killing me, man. When you talk about things like that, you really put us back, because I'm out here advocating for our city, and people now are mad at you, and they'll vote no because of you. So don't do that. And I think he's picked up on that. He said I was just mad as heck, and I couldn't help it, and I get that. And I said, okay, well, just remember, it really doesn't help. So now, on the other side, if I should win, I would tell you that Jamie Smith, if you don't know him, he is as personable as they come. And Jamie and I have known each other for many years.
Served in the legislature together.
Yeah. And he's a good guy. And I think he has assets that could be utilized by the city. Christine Erickson is a sharp gal, too. She's got resources and abilities that I think we could benefit from. So I don't know Joe Batchelor that well. And I've known David Zakaitis for many years. He started to come to the city council when I was on the council. And he's very colorful, and what I've gotten to know from him is he's in his heart, he's about as nice as you could be, I think, and true to what he believes. I would hope that, in a real good world, I suppose, there's likely to be a runoff, potentially, and whoever that other person is, I think if there was a way to bring it together and bring it back to the entire city is in some way, we've got these 3 positions to fill, maybe even 4, a chief of staff position could be one, but still, I think there's opportunities. There's a lot of other great candidates.
And just to clarify, in our election coming up in June, if one of the mayoral candidates does not achieve 50% plus 1, then it goes to a runoff between the top 2 contenders. So the likelihood of one candidate in a mayoral race receiving 50% plus 1 in a 5-person field is remote. This question is about crisis response, referencing what they describe as riots in 2018. This is a civil disturbance at the Empire Mall following a peaceful protest, peaceful march, as I recall, downtown. But as darkness was upon us, things got really out of control down at the mall, and there were a lot of violence and vandalism and so forth. What do you think of the response to that? How would you have handled that situation?
Well, I don't know if I could have handled it any better, in all fairness. One of the goals when I talk about public safety and addressing it as my number 1 issue, one of the goals I'm after is to improve the relationship that the public has with police officers. That whole defund the police kind of movement, not happening under my watch. My hope and goal is to have the relationship between the public and the police department as supportive. So you know how firefighters are like the hero? I think all of them have a Superman hero on their chest. And we all wanted to be a firefighter, a lot of us. That same energy that's behind firefighters, I want to return that and bring it up to our law enforcement. That relationship that minor or young kids can have with an officer is very important. It creates maybe a mentor. There's a program that's in the system right now. It's called Camp Postcard, where police officers, school resource officers, have kids come out of the schools and they go off and do camp together, and they become mentor relationships. So the point is, if we have a solid support as a community for our law enforcement, it'll help retain officers. It'll help create just a unity in our community. And after an event like that, I think there's just more support that can be made for the police officers.
I'm not familiar with this issue, but I'll try to recap it as best I can based on the question here. Apparently, you voted for a bill to allow counties and municipalities to allow cigar bars. So that's allow cigar smoking in certain locales, right? Now, this question says, well, the public had already said they didn't want to have smoking in public places. So how important is it to you to support the public, the majority feeling of the public, since this was opposed by the public, but you voted to allow it in so-called cigar bars?
Right. So it's an interesting kind of concept. I'm not a cigar smoker, just to be clear. It's really seen as an economic development bill, if you will. So the cigar bar is a specific space that is allowed where smoking can be done, where they sell cigars. And a large, I don't know what the percentage was exactly, but percentage of their money raised has to come from the sale of cigars. So first off, don't expect it. It's not happening in your regular restaurants or bars. It's just not happening there. If you go to some of those casinos, you'll see where they have a little place outside where people smoke. The cigar bar idea is an economic development opportunity for people who want to build something like that. But I can assure you it is going to be difficult, because a largest percentage of the operating expense for that business has to come from the sale of cigars. That's a lot of cigars. And it just doesn't the math doesn't work. but there were people who were interested in doing it, and okay, well, if you can figure it out and make it work, well, there's a little sliver for you, go ahead. But it won't be in fact impacting your regular public places.
Two questions, a two-part question. I'll just do the first part. How's that?
Of course.
So the question is about your familiarity with other cities and their budgeting and their finances, and whether you have that expertise. So the question, I'll read the exact question. Have you seen and analyzed a city budget dashboard for other cities? Do you have familiarity with how other municipalities handle their finances?
Yeah, well, my only expertise really is the city of Sioux Falls and the state of South Dakota. And if you go to the state of South Dakota Department of Revenue site, good luck. You know, it's like the beginning of the end. And so what my vision is for this new dashboard for the city is really based on my own feelings and thoughts about how it could be done better. So I don't have another model to mirror, another city in our state that does it differently, that could be like what we do. I'm just thinking from the beginning, as a regular guy, person, what would I want to see? It's not that hard. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that hard. And it's worth the effort, but I don't have one to follow.
There's a three-part question, so I'll pick one of the three. But this questioner is asking, what consideration is there given in terms of tax relief for people with disabilities or for families of low income, modest income?
Well, so there is a several.
And that certainly could apply to property tax, but maybe it would apply to other things as well.
Sure. Certainly there's a sales tax rebate program that if you're of a minimum wage, minimum earning individual, that you can get rebated your sales tax program.
Do many people take advantage of that?
No.
Why?
It's difficult to keep all your records. Personal pride, people don't want to apply for assistance like that. And fortunately, there's not many that are in that category, frankly. But there are I should have brought the number of bills that I was even a part of this year, but have been a part of the system in the state and in the city to freeze your property taxes if you're of a certain age or a certain income, disability, veterans. There's a large group, and one of the bills I do want to talk about is one that requires that QR code. You guys know what the QR code is, that little square magic. I required that all counties, when they send you your property tax bill, to include that QR code that'll take you to a tool in the state's Department of Revenue's website, so you can drill down and see exactly where your money is getting spent, who's collecting it. The education piece of it is really important, the transparency piece of it. But on that same website are all the programs that are available to individuals who are, fixed income, disabled, veteran, all of those things. And so now the opportunity is that individuals now know where to go to apply, and they can do it right online. They don't have to go in person to do it. And I think that'll help improve users.
Greg, were there some things that were not covered that you wanted to bring up, some topics that we did not get a chance to discuss? And I would ask you also, are there some signature initiatives that you think would come out of your administration? I know Paul Tenaken is so, as when you ask him about his accomplishments, one of the things he points to is this SUE 52, this community-wide mentoring program. So anything else you wanted to touch upon in terms of your platform or topics that were not addressed with my questions or with the audience's questions?
Well, I don't have any signature projects in my pocket that I want to have built or spend money on, other than traffic lights. I would tell you that's going to take some investment. One of the interesting things that's going to happen immediately is the new mayor, when they come in, is going to be they will have already started the budgeting process for the new year. And so the mayor coming in has a chance to say, hey, look, I don't think we got this right. Let's revisit this. Let's change this percentage or this part over here. And one of the pieces I want to adjust is the funding for public safety. I want to make sure we have enough money there to provide the resources necessary for those officers. So getting right into the budget is probably some of the pieces that are missed in a lot of these discussions for mayor is that there really isn't time for on-the-job training for the mayor, frankly. There really isn't. What we've got going on in our city is so big and fast, it's important to have somebody who can walk in there and get going. Having come from the city council and the state legislature, currently in the state legislature in the heat of all these battles, I guess it's like I'm tuned up and ready to go. I really feel like that. I can hit the ground running. Like I mentioned before, I am so proud of our city. I'm proud to even be up here as a candidate. I would probably leave you with this, if you want. Sioux Falls is like the defending Super Bowl champions, undefeated. And we're going back for another season, and they need a new head coach. Who doesn't want to be a part of that team? Sioux Falls has got it going on. We're doing great things. And the state government has really been a kind of a challenge. It's like we get a few steps forward, then we go back. And it's like,
You mean in terms of its relationship to Sioux Falls?
just the entire direction of the state just seems kind of, maybe it's just because it's so big, you don't get to feel it. But the city of Sioux Falls, having served here and representing it in Pierre, it's just like we got it going on. And it's just so great. And
Well, that head coach position is a pretty tough one.
yeah.
Paul Tenaiken almost didn't run for second term. He at one point he said he was emotionally exhausted because it's so challenging. Not only are you in charge of this huge workforce and this enormous budget, but crises come up, and how are you going to handle and maintain your emotional health in the light of there's sure to be a lot of negativity directed against you, a lot of criticism directed against you. How are you going to stay grounded?
Yeah, it's one of the things I've talked about before is the idea of these individuals who have been elected before. It's one of the issues Paul did have a learning curve on, is that the immense criticism that comes for everything you do. Having served on the city council, I got that firsthand. I'd go to the grocery store and somebody'd walk by and they'd say, hey, and you just couldn't get away, if you will. And serving as a legislator, I get the same thing. So what happens after a few years, you do get a little stronger, a little more confident, a little more maybe resilient. And so that moment of flash to an anger point where you say something derogatory about somebody that you shouldn't have said creates a bigger issue. Having been around it enough, you realize, okay, stop, breathe, listen. Don't say what's in your head. Think it through. Just some of that experience, I think, is what will guide me forward so that I don't make mistakes or irrational decisions. Is just based on that experience, I think, that really has set me up. And I don't know about as mayor. I've been trying to get there, but I get it. I think I understand it, how that pressure is going to come. And I believe I'm ready. My mental health, if you will, you'd have to ask my wife about that. But I think I know what I'm stepping into, and I think I'm really ready.
You have said kind things about your opponents, 4 other candidates. I don't think you've said a single negative thing about any of your opponents. So in this field of other experienced candidates, other good people also seeking this office, what distinguishes you from the other 4? Why should you be elected our next mayor? This will be the final question.
Okay. I mean, who's the better looking guy, right? No, I do love, and I do have a good sense of humor. I try to be just lighthearted about a lot of things. Maybe that's how I deal with stress and anxiety. Probably the biggest thing is my business ownership experience. I mean, for 30 years, I've been trying to make money at what I do. And I realize where an opportunity is and my return on the investment, the accountability for what I've just decided to do or not do, working with customers. Customers are always right? And translating that into the city and focusing on the public and they're right. And the relationship that the city should have with their customers, if you will. I think that piece is probably the magic of it all, and just that respect for the dollars that are collected through tax dollars, I think that's probably the core of it.
Running for public office is tough. And then serving in public office is even harder. Please join me in thanking Greg for seeking public office and for being so responsive to our questions today.
Thank you.
The fifth and final installment of this series of interviews with mayoral candidates is next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central. That's May 5th. It will be with Jamie Smith, and then we will wrap that up. So thank you all for being conscientious citizens. That's what this is all about. What a privilege it is for all of us who have been part of this to get to know these candidates on a much deeper level. When you have 5 candidates lined up, and in an hour or an hour and a half, you go down the line and they're given 30 seconds or given a minute to respond. It's difficult to get to know them. And I hope you feel that in each of these cases, you're going to be better equipped to make a very important decision. So thank you for being with us.